Welcome back, Pauls. Let's see what's the mystery hidden. Let's go to the second chapter in The Hidden Staircase. It's chapter 2, The Mysterious Mischap. Sipping their tea, Helen Corning and her aunt waited for Nancy's decision. The young slut was in a dilemma. She wanted to start at once solving the mystery of the ghost of Twin Elms, but Nathan Gomber's warning still rang in her ears as she felt that her first duty was to stay with her father. At last she spoke. "Mrs. Hayes," she began. "Please call me Aunt Rosemary," the callers requested. All Helen's friends too. Nancy smiled. "I would love to. Aunt Rosemary, may I please let you know tonight or tomorrow? I really must speak to my father about the case, and something else came up just this afternoon, which may keep me at home for a while at least." "I understand," Mrs. Haley answered, trying to conceal her disappointment. Helen Corning did not take Nancy's announcement so calmly. "Oh, Nancy, you just must come. I'm sure your dad would want you to help us. Can't you postpone the other things until you get back?" "I'm afraid not," said Nancy. "I can't tell you all the details, but Dad has been threatened, and I feel that I ought to stay close to him." Hannah Grin added her fears. "Goodness only knows what they may do for Mr. Drew," she said. "Somebody could come up and hit him on the head, or poison his food in a restaurant, or—" Helen and her aunt gasped. "Is that bad?" Helen asked, her eyes growing wide. Nancy explained that she would talk to her father when he returned home. "I hate to disappoint you," she said, "but you can see what a quandary I am in." "You poor girl," said Mrs. Hayes sympathetically. "Now don't you worry about us." Nancy smiled. "I'm worried whether I come or not," she said. "Anyway, I'll talk to my dad tonight." The callers left shortly. When the door has closed behind them, Hannah put an arm around Nancy's shoulders. "I'm sure everything will come out all right for everybody," she said. "I'm sorry I talked about those dreadful things that might happen to your father. I let my imagination run away with me just like they said Mrs. Flora does with her." "You're a great comfort, Hannah dear," said Nancy. "To tell the truth, I have thought of all kinds of horrible things myself." She began to pace the floor. "I wish Dad would get home." During the next hour, she went to the window at the least a dozen times, hoping to see her father's car coming up the street. It was not until 6 o'clock that she heard the crunch of wheels on the driveway and saw Mr. Drew Siren pull into the garage. "He's safe," she cried out to Hannah, who was testing potatoes that was baking in the oven. In a flash, Nancy was out of the back door and running to meet her father. "Oh, Dad, I'm so glad to see you," she explained. She gave him a tremendous hug and a resounding kiss. He responded affectionately but gave a little chuckle. "What have I done to rate this extra bit of attention?" he teased. With a wink, he added, "I know your date for tonight is off and you want me to substitute." "Oh, Dad," Nancy replied, "of course my date's not off, but I'm just about to call it off." "Why?" Mr. Drew questioned. "Isn't Dirk going to stay on your list?" "It's not that," Nancy replied. "It's because you're in a terrible danger, Dad. I've been warned not to leave you." Instead of looking alarmed, the lawyer burst out laughing. "In terrible danger of what? Are you going to make a raid on my wallet?" "Dad, be serious. I really mean what I'm saying. Nathan Gomber was here and told me that you are in a great danger. I would better stay with you at all times." The lawyer sobered at once. "That pest again?" he exclaimed. "There are times when I would like to thrash the man till he begged for mercy." Mr. Drew suggested that they postpone their discussions about Nathan Gomber until dinner was over. Then he would tell his daughter the true facts in the case. After they had finished dinner, Hannah insisted upon tidying up alone while father and daughter talked. "I will admit that there is a bit of muddle about the railroad bridge," Mr. Drew began. "What happened was that the lawyer who went to Willie Wharton's signature was very ill at the time. Unfortunately, he failed to have the signature witnessed or have the attached certificate of the acknowledgement executed. The poor man passed away a few hours later. And the other railroad lawyers failed to notice that the signature hadn't been witnessed or the certificate notarized," Nancy asked. "Not right away. The matter did not come to until the man's window turned his briefcase over to the railroad. The old deed to Wharton's property was there, so the lawyer assumed that the signature on the contract was genuine. The contract for the railroad bridge was awarded and works began. Suddenly, Nathan Gomber appeared, saying he represented Willie Wharton and others who had owned property while the railroad has bought on either side of the Muskova River. "I understood from Mrs. Gomber," said Nancy, "that Willie Wharton is trying to get more money for his neighbors by holding out for a higher price himself." "That's the story." Personally, I think it's a sharp deal on Gombo's part. The most people he can get money for, the higher his commission, Mr. Drew stated. What a mess, Nancy exclaimed. And what can be done? To tell the truth, there is a little anyone can do until Willie Wharton is found. Gombo knows this, of course, and has probably advised Wharton to stay in hiding until the railroad agrees to give everybody more money. Nancy has been watching her father intently. Now she saw an expression of eagerness come over his face. He leaned forward in his chair and said, "But I think I am about to outwit Mr. Nathan Gombo. I have a tip that Willie Wharton is in Chicago, and I am leaving Monday morning to find out." Mr. Drew went on, "I believe that Wharton will say he did not sign the contract of sale, while the railroad company has, and will readily consent to having the certificate of acknowledgement notarized. Then of course the railroad won't pay him or any of the other property owners another cent." "But Dad, you still haven't convinced me you're not in danger," Nancy reminded him. "Nancy dear," her father replied, "I feel that I am not in danger. Gomber is nothing but a blowhard. I doubt that he or Willie Wharton or any of the other property owners would resort to violence to keep me from working on this case. He's just trying to scare me into persuading the railroad to accede to his demands." Nancy looked skeptical. "But don't forget that you're about to go to Chicago and proceed the very man Gomber and those property owners don't want around here just now." "I know," Mr. Drew nodded, "but I still doubt if anyone would use force to keep me from going." Laughingly, the lawyer added, "So I won't need you as a bodyguard, Nancy." His daughter gave a sigh of resignation. "All right, Dad, you know best." She then proceeded to tell her father about the Twin Elms mystery which she has been asked to solve. "If you approve," Nancy said in conclusion, "I would like to go over there with Helen." Mr. Drew has listened with great interest. Now, after a few minutes of thoughts, he smiled. "Go by all means, Nancy. I realize you've been itching to work on a new case, and this sounds like a real challenge. But please be careful." "Oh, I will, Dad," Nancy promised, her face lighting up. "Thanks a million." She jumped from her chair, gave her father a kiss, then went to phone Helen the good news. It was arranged that the girls would go to Twin Elms on Monday morning. Nancy returned to the living room eagerly to discuss the mystery further. Her father, however, glanced at his betrothed. "Say, young lady, you would better go dressed for that date of yours." He winked. "I happen to know that Dirk doesn't like to keep waiting, especially by any of my mysteries." She laughed and hurried upstairs to change into a dance dress. Half an hour later, Dirk Jackson arrived. Nancy and the red-haired former high school tennis champion drove off to pick up another couple and attended an amateur play and dance given by the local Little Theatres group. Nancy thoroughly enjoyed herself and was sorry when the affair ended. With the promise of another date as soon as she returned from Twin Elms, Nancy said good night and waved from a doorway to the departing boy. As she prepared for bed, she thought of the play, the excellent orchestra, how lucky she was to have Dirk for a date, and what fun it has all been. But then her thoughts turned to Helen Corning and her relatives in the haunted house, Twin Elms. "I can hardly wait for Monday to come," she murmured to herself as she fell asleep. The following morning, she and her father attended church together. Hannah said she was going to a special service after afternoon and therefore would stay at home during the morning. "I'll have a good dinner waiting for you," she announced as the Drews left. After the service was over, Mr. Drew said he would like to drive down to the waterfront and see what progress has been made on the new bridge. "The railroad is going ahead with constructions on the far side of the river," he told Nancy. "Is the Watson property on this side?" Nancy asked. "Yes, and I must get off the truth of this mixed-up situation so that work can be started on this side too." Mr. Drew wound among the many streets leading down to the Muscova River, then took the vehicle Bridger across. He turned towards the construction area, presently parked his car. As he and Nancy stepped from the sedan, he looked ruefully at the pumps. "It's going to be rough walking down to the waterfront," he said. "Perhaps you had better wait here." "Oh, I'll be all right," Nancy assured him. "I would like to see what's being done." Various pieces of large machinery goods about on the highway ground, a crane, a derrick, and hydraulic shovels. As the Drew walked towards the river, they passed a large truck. It faced the river and stood at the top of an incline just above two of the four enormous concrete piers which had almost been built. "I suppose there will be a matching piers on the opposite side," Nancy mused, as she and her father reached the river bank. They paused in the space between the two huge abutments. Mr. Drew glanced from side to side as he had heard something. Suddenly, Nancy detected a noise behind them. Turning, she was horrified to see that the big truck was moving towards them. No one was at the wheel, and the great vehicle was gathering speed at every moment. "Dad!" she screamed. In the brief second of warning, the truck almost seemed to leap towards the water. Nancy and her father, hemmed in by the concrete piers, had no way to escape being run down. "Dive!" Mr. Drew ordered. Without hesitation, he and Nancy made running flat dives into the water, and with arms flattening and legs kicking, swam furiously out of the harm's way. The truck thundered into the water and sank immediately up to the cab. The Drews turned and came back to the shore. "Phew, that was a narrow escape," the lawyer exclaimed as he helped his daughter retire her pumps which had come off in the oozy bank. "And what sights we are," Nancy remarked. "Indeed we are," her father agreed as they trudged up the incline. "I would like to get hold of the workman who was careless enough to leave that heavy truck on the slope without the brake on the properly." Nancy was not so sure that the near accident was the fault of a careless workman. Nathan Gomber has warned that Mr. Drew's life was in danger. The threat might already have been put into action. Is Carlson Drew nearly in danger? Stay tuned for the next chapter, guys. Have a happy day.